This week in Jamaica Now.
Have I been charged? Have I been convicted?
The JLP's Kim Brown Lawrence, who's facing corruption charges, defended her decision to run in the race. 499 candidates have been nominated for local government elections. Jolyan Silvera remanded following latest court appearance. And Alan Magnus, the king of Jamaican morning radio, has died. I am Jovan Johnson, and this is Jamaica Now. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has scoffed at an assertion that the local government elections will be a referendum on his leadership. Opposition leader Mark Golding made the claim. But on Thursday, Mr. Holness, who is also the leader of the ruling Jamaica Labour Party, said his performance is always being tested.
Every day my leadership goes through a referendum. Every day. This is no different. This is one in a series of events that every day speak in a critical way to my leadership and governance. And as I said before, we're not perfect. But again, when you compare us with what has gone before, you would see that we have done far better.
The Prime Minister was speaking following the nomination of candidates for the parish elections set for February 26. And opposition leader Mark Golding said Jamaicans are treating the local polls as a national election.
Because people are dying to send a signal to this government that they want to get rid of them and bring in a government in which they can have trust and confidence. They're tired of a government with a leader who has broken its trust with the people through a series of actions over the last several years, and a government that hasn't shown the capacity to care for the interests of the people, especially the most vulnerable who need their help. So the PNP is offering, as it has always offered, the opportunity for governance which is governed by integrity, standing on good principles of governance, using the resources of the people for the people and for no one else, and ensuring that the institutions that are built fulfill their proper function, of many of them started by the PNP to help those who need help. And we are offering ourselves again to the Jamaican people, bring Jamaica back on track.
The Electoral Office of Jamaica says 499 candidates were nominated. 496 of the candidates will vie to represent 228 electoral divisions. 3 candidates will compete for mayor of Portmore. Now, the JLP and the PNP have fielded a full slate of candidates. 4 nominated candidates represent the United Independents Congress. Some 36 persons are running as independents. Meanwhile, the Jamaica Labour Party's Kim Brown Lawrence, who remains embroiled in a fraud case involving the Caribbean Maritime University CMU, has defended her stewardship after being nominated for the Brownstown Division in St. Anne.
I have not been charged. I have not been charged. I have not been convicted. I don't follow propaganda. There's no need to follow propaganda. Just follow follow my page instead of the news. All propaganda. Have I been charged? Have I been convicted? Come on now. They see a champion and they're trying to fight me down, hold me down. But God, oh God, my Brownstonians love me. I'm standing by my Brownstonians. I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere.
Ms. Brown Lawrence was charged in 2019. She, along with former Education Minister Ruel Reid, his wife Sharon, their daughter Sherelle, as well as former CMU President Professor Fritz Pinnock, were charged over the alleged divergence of $50 million from the university. The charges included breaches of the Corruption Prevention Act, conspiracy to defraud, misconduct in a public office at common law, and breaches of the Proceeds of Crime Act. And Rosal Hamilton, who is seeking to retain the Raytown division in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation for the JLP, has issued a call to the police. She says the security forces have to act now to prevent political violence allegedly perpetrated by the PNP from derailing her campaign. She claims that past violence is to be blamed for her winning the seat by just 1 vote in 2016.
The media keep saying about 1 vote, and I've never heard they said what causes the margin to be so low. So I am using this opportunity to speak to the Commissioner of Police to put excessive police in the Raytown division. On November 2016, we had a murder, the local election. We had a murder just around the corner from here. So one of the runners was killed, and because of that, the police came in and they barred the area. So there was no movement.
Yes.
So that was what causes that election.
Yeah.
Now, in the 2020 general election, we had a similar situation like that. For 334, gunmen came in again and they shoot up the place and 3 persons were shot. So it's a trend that when the PMP see they are losing, they come into the stronghold and they create mayhem.
Raytown is located in the Kingston Central constituency. The police are investigating an incident in which JLP councillor caretaker for the Trinityville division in St. Thomas, Dean Jones, pulled his licensed gun on another man during a video-captured altercation on February 5. Attorney Alexander Shaw, who represents Mr. Jones, says his client took defensive action to de-escalate the situation. The PNP called for Mr. Jones to be pulled from the JLP's slate of candidates. And the ruling JLP says it is deeply troubled by recent alleged threats directed at councillor candidate Venetia Phillips while in the presence of PNP chairman Dr. Angela Brown-Burke. Ms. Phillips, a former PNP member, recently joined the JLP. The government used its majority in Parliament to approve a proposed law that will see the office of the Political Ombudsman subsumed into the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, ECJ. The controversial bill, which has been opposed by the opposition People's National Party and several civil society groups, was passed in the House of Representatives on Tuesday and in the Senate on Friday. The Ombudsman is the referee for political disputes and enforces the political code of conduct. Opposition leader Mark Golding said he could not support the bill and described the government's approach to pursue the change without consensus as disgraceful.
We think it is going to bring the Electoral Commission into the fray of adjudicating on very partisan matters, heated matters, in the course of a political campaign. That has never been their role, and it is a mistake, a bad policy, to bring them into that role. We disagree with it fundamentally. And if one member of that commission felt otherwise, that was not the considered view of, that may be a personal view. And in any event, having discussed the matter with him, I am aware that his understanding was that this was a cost-cutting measure to provide administrative support for the political ombudsman through the ECJ, providing the secretariat services and having somebody, not necessarily a permanent officer, who would play that role, and the political ombudsman role. It was never discussed that 9 commissioners would become the adjudicators of disputes of this nature. Furthermore, we had suggested last week, behind the Speaker's chair, that we could put in place, by agreement, a panel of 3 persons, eminent persons, who could play the role of adjudicating any issues in the current local government election campaign. And they could provide it with some secretarial support, and they could provide it with a stipend, and their services would end when the campaign ends. We've had no feedback on that proposal.
But Justice Minister Delroy Chuck chastised the opposition for its stance, saying it had supported previous proposals to have the ECJ take over the functions of the Ombudsman.
You have a situation, Mr. Speaker, where 9 members, 4 selected members, the director of the election, can I be allowed to finish? And you have, Mr. Speaker, 2 representatives of the 2 main political parties. I think it is cheap and outrageous to say that this body could be partisan. I think it is unmeritorious to say that this body, I think it is unmeritorious to say that this body can't continue to act independently.
The ECJ oversees the country's electoral process. It has 9 commissioners, 4 representatives from the 2 main political parties, 4 independent members, and the Director of Elections. In some other news now, former parliamentarian Jolyan Silvera, who is charged with the murder of his wife, was again remanded when he appeared in court on Thursday afternoon. A bail application is to be made on his behalf on April 11 in the Home Circuit Court. The date was scheduled before Justice Vinette Graham Allen, who for the second time opted not to allow the media inside the courtroom. 42-year-old Melissa Silvera was murdered at her Stony Hill St. Andrew home on November 10 last year. Initial reports had indicated that she died in her sleep. Debris and floodwaters left several businesses shuttered along West End Road in Negril, Westmoreland this week. A seawall in the area collapsed on Tuesday, causing severe flooding along the roadway. President of the Negril Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Elaine Allen Bradley, said the current situation could have been avoided if the National Works Agency NWA had responded to a request for remedial work last December. Community Relations Officer at the NWA's Western Office, Janelle Ricketts, said an estimate has been submitted to have both the collapsed wall and the roadway rehabilitated. Former President of the Jamaican Court of Appeal, Justice C. Dennis Morrison, died on February 3. He was 73 years old. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck hailed Mr. Morrison, a former Rhodes Scholar, as an outstanding jurist who likely taught most of the lawyers currently practicing in Jamaica. And also on February 3, news emerged that Aston Familyman Barrett, the original bassist for Bob Marley and the Wailers, died. He was 77. And that's it for this edition of Jamaica Now, your weekly review of the big news stories. Send us your comments at onlinefeedback@gleanerjm.com. Follow us on X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at Jamaica Gleaner, and on Facebook at Gleaner Jamaica. Like this video on our YouTube page, turn on the notification, and subscribe today. I'm Jovan Johnson, and before we go, Alan Magnus, who claimed the title of Jamaica's Good Morning Man in 1972 and enjoyed a long and successful reign as the king of breakfast radio for more than 40 years, died on February 3. He was 80 years old. Let's look back on some scenes from his life.